Okay, so this whole collective spiritual awakening thing, it's everywhere, right? Like, everyone's talking about it.
It really is.
And I get it. Like, the idea that we could all just sort of level up together as a species,
Yeah.
that's pretty appealing.
Oh, absolutely. It's like this vision of universal harmony, right?
Yeah.
No more suffering, no more conflict.
Exactly. Like, imagine a world where everyone just gets it.
Right.
And we're all, like, vibing on this higher consciousness.
Yeah, it's definitely a compelling thought.
But then I kind of started thinking, like, are we maybe setting ourselves up for disappointment here?
That's a good question.
Is this whole collective awakening thing just a fantasy?
Yeah.
Like a way to avoid the messier, more individual work of actual spiritual growth?
Interesting, right?
Yeah, so we found this article. It's from the Spiritual Seek,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called The Illusion of Collective Spiritual Awakening.
Ooh, that's a catchy title.
Right, and it's making me rethink everything.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the article's take on this?
Well, it starts by unpacking why this idea is so alluring in the first place.
I mean, it makes sense, right? We
That.
all experience suffering. We see all the problems in the world. And this concept of a collective shift feels like, well, like a solution.
Right. It's like this hope that if everyone just wakes up, all the bad stuff will disappear.
But the article then dives into this idea that maybe,
Ow.
just maybe, our egos are actually driving this whole narrative.
Oh, interesting. So it's less about genuine spiritual growth and more about
Potentially, yeah.
our own, like, personal stuff.
Well, think about it. When was the last time you felt frustrated with a system? Like, I don't know, the healthcare system, the government, or even just the traffic on your way to work?
Oh, I mean, pretty much every day, honestly.
Right. And the article argues that sometimes when we're fed up with the way things are,
Yeah.
we project that frustration outward.
Okay.
We start looking for a narrative that validates our discontent.
So it's like instead of taking responsibility for our own stuff, we're blaming the system.
In a way, yes. And this idea of humanity waking up can be a convenient way to do that. It's almost like we're saying, it's not me, it's the system. And everyone else is starting to see it too.
I see. So it's less about, like, actually evolving and more about feeling like we're part of some elite group that's in the know.
That's the idea. And the article even quotes Eckhart Tolle,
Oh, wow.
who, as you know, is all about the ego.
Yeah.
And he talks about how the ego clings to external things to find meaning.
Right.
So maybe instead of facing our own inner work, we latch onto this idea of everyone else changing, which is ultimately less threatening to our egos.
Oh, that's really insightful. It's like we're hoping for this spiritual bypass. Like if everyone else wakes up, I won't have to deal with my own baggage.
Exactly. And it's not to say that there aren't people genuinely on a path of awakening, but the article is pushing us to question whether this idea of a mass synchronized event is really what's happening.
So how do we tell the difference between this kind of, like, earthly dissatisfaction, you know, like being annoyed with traffic, and a genuine shift in consciousness? They seem pretty intertwined.
That's a great point. The article makes a crucial distinction.
Okay.
Dissatisfaction is about wanting to change the game from within.
Yeah, okay.
You're still playing by the rules, but you're trying to make them better.
I see.
True spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that the game itself is an illusion.
That's interesting. So let's say you're protesting against corruption in the government. That could be seen as trying to change the system from within, right?
Exactly. And the article uses this very example.
Oh, wow.
It says that someone could look at those protesters and say, see, this is proof of a collective awakening. But if their focus is solely on eradicating corruption, they're still operating within that system of duality, that belief that there's a right and a wrong, a good and a bad.
So even if the goal is noble, like, you're not truly detached if you're still fighting to change the rules of the game.
Right. The article contrasts that with someone who sees both corruption and the fight against corruption as part of a larger illusion. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah.
The light and the shadow, and transcending those dualities altogether.
Which reminds me of that Rumi quote. Do not be satisfied with stories. Unfold your own myth.
I love that quote.
It speaks to the intensely personal nature of spiritual growth, right? Like, we can't just piggyback off someone else's awakening.
Absolutely.
We have to do our own inner work.
This leads us to the article's central argument. Why collective awakening, as a societal event, might actually be impossible.
Okay, I am all ears. Why impossible?
Well, for starters,
Yeah.
it points out that even movements advocating for, say, global unity often rely on shared ideologies.
Right.
And those ideologies, even if well-intentioned,
Yeah.
are still rooted in material concerns,
Yeah.
in changing the outer world.
So even if the goal is positive, like saving the planet,
Yeah.
it's not true detachment if it's about changing the external.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
The article also highlights the problem of judgment inherent in the idea of collective awakening.
Oh, yeah.
When we believe some people are awake and others are asleep,
Yeah.
we're creating a division that contradicts the principle of non-duality.
Right.
It's like we're falling thick into that trap of us versus them, even when we think we're evolving beyond that.
Yeah, it's like, I've seen the light, but you poor souls are still stumbling in the dark. Not exactly a recipe for unity and compassion.
Exactly. And there's another point the article brings up. Free will.
Okay.
The idea of a preordained collective awakening overlooked the fact that each individual soul has to choose its own path.
Yeah.
You can't force enlightenment.
Right, you can lead a horse to water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's this final, almost paradoxical point.
Okay.
If everyone did wake up simultaneously, society as we know it would probably cease to function.
Whoa, really? Why?
Well, think about it. If everyone suddenly saw the one as an illusion,
Okay, yeah.
they might lose interest in the things that keep society running, like work, ambition, even basic survival instincts.
Wow, that's a fascinating point. So what does the article say about the people who claim we're seeing a collective awakening right now? Like all those influencers with their crystals and their high vibes.
That's where the article takes a fascinating turn
Okay.
into the realm of metaphysics and reincarnation.
Oh, interesting.
It basically says, hold on a second. Let's look at the evidence.
Okay.
If lots of people were truly awakening and transcending the cycle of birth and death,
This is where it gets really interesting.
we should be seeing a decrease in the Earth's population, right? Awakened souls, according to many traditions, don't reincarnate. They've learned their lessons, they've moved on.
So the fact that the population keeps growing.
Suggests that more souls are coming in to experience earthly life,
Yep.
not that everyone's suddenly waking up and transcending it. The article even draws on ideas from theosophy,
Okay.
which sees Earth as a kind of training ground for consciousness, a school for souls.
So instead of a mass exodus of awakened souls, we've got a constant influx of new students eager to learn their lessons.
Precisely. It's a pretty mind-blowing counterargument.
It is. But then the article goes on to define what it sees as the true nature of spiritual awakening.
Right, let's get into that. What does the article say?
Okay, so let's dive into that.
This mini test,
Yeah.
it's not about judging yourself
Right.
or labeling yourself good or bad based on your score.
No, for sure.
It's more about becoming aware of those thinking patterns.
Yeah.
Those deeply ingrained ones, those knee-jerk reactions that keep us locked in conflict and separation.
Because if we're not even aware of them,
Right,
how can we ever change?
right. Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
trying to solve a problem that you don't even know you have.
And the article connects this back to the idea of collective awakening,
Okay.
or rather the illusion of it.
Okay.
It argues that fighting to change the world,
Yeah.
even for the better,
Mm-hmm.
can keep us entangled in those very illusions.
So we're so focused on fixing the symptoms
Yeah.
that we never address the underlying cause.
And that's where that quote from the leopard comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Everything must change for everything to remain the same.
Whoa.
It's a sobering thought.
It really is, yeah.
It's like we're on this treadmill,
Mm-hmm.
running and running, but never actually getting anywhere.
Yeah. Like we think we're making progress,
Right.
but we're just perpetuating the same old patterns.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the article suggests that true awakening involves
What's that?
stepping off that treadmill altogether,
Okay.
recognizing that the game itself is ultimately rigged.
So it's not about changing the rules,
Mm-hmm.
but about transcending the game entirely.
That's the idea.
But how do we even begin to do that?
That's a great question.
Yeah. It feels like we're so conditioned
I know.
to believe that change happens on a grand scale, like on a
Mhm.
societal level.
It's definitely a challenge to
Yeah.
shift our perspective, especially when we're bombarded with messages
Mm-hmm.
about fighting for justice, making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what if the most radical act of all
Yeah.
is to just step back from that fight,
Mm-hmm.
detach from the need to control outcomes?
That's a really different way of thinking about it.
It is.
It's almost like we're being asked to surrender,
Right.
but not in a passive or defeatist way,
No, not at all.
but in a way that opens up a new possibility.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our constant striving
Yeah.
might actually be preventing us from seeing a deeper truth.
So if collective awakening isn't realistic, and individual awakening is about letting go of this need to change the world,
Yeah.
where does that leave us? What about all the problems out there?
It's not about ignoring those things.
Okay.
It's about approaching them from a different place.
Okay.
A place of deeper understanding and compassion.
Okay, so instead of trying to force change on the outside,
Yeah.
we're cultivating it from within.
Precisely. It's about embodying a different kind of energy, a different way of being in the world.
Almost like that Gandhi quote,
Yeah.
be the change you wish to see.
Exactly.
Yeah?
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe those individual transformations can eventually create a wave of change that's way more profound than anything we could have engineered externally.
So it's not about giving up on the world,
No,
but about approaching it with deeper awareness.
that's the idea. The article invites us to consider that true power lies not in dominating the world, but in mastering ourselves,
Wow.
awakening to our true nature, which is interconnected with everything and everyone.
That's a powerful concept.
It is.
But it also raises a lot of questions. Like, what does this actually look like? How do we balance this inward focus
Yeah.
with our desire to, like, make a positive impact?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
And I think they're exactly the kind the article wants us to grapple with. It's not giving us easy answers.
Okay.
It's inviting us to embark on a journey of self-discovery.
So what's resonating with you the most?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What's sticking with you?
You know, for me, what's really sticking with me is how easy it is to get caught up in those quick fixes, those external solutions.
Yeah.
Like this idea of a collective awakening, it almost lets us off the hook.
It does. It does.
It's easier to hope for a cosmic shift
Yeah,
than to face our own shadows, our own stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the article actually talks about that.
Does it?
Yeah, it says that a vast majority of people aren't actually interested in the work of true spiritual awakening.
Right. It uses that stat, like 99.99% of humanity
Yeah, something like that.
would rather stay comfortable.
Exactly. Even if it means clinging to beliefs that don't serve us.
Yeah, it's like we're wired for security, even if it means staying stuck.
It's much easier to imagine everyone else changing
Right.
than to face our own resistance.
It's like we're hoping for a cosmic shortcut, like something's going to come in and magically fix everything.
But true transformation,
Yeah,
it's an inside job.
Right. It's about becoming aware of those deeper patterns, those ego voices.
And learning to discern those from, like, the whispers of our soul.
Which can be tricky.
It can be.
Because the ego is sneaky.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it can disguise itself as spirituality, right?
It totally can. The article uses this analogy
It's that.
of listening to the mind versus listening to the heart.
I like that.
The mind, with all its anxieties, can drown out the guidance of the soul.
Right. It's like we're so overloaded with information and external noise that we lose touch with our inner compass, that intuitive wisdom.
That's why practices like meditation are so important.
Right. To quiet the mind, create space for that deeper wisdom.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the article's message. Stop fighting the outside world. Start looking inward. The answers, if there are any, are probably going to be found within us.
Because at the end of the day, the world is a mirror, right?
Yeah.
Reflecting back to us our own internal state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that saying,
Yeah.
as within, so without.
It's both empowering and a little daunting.
It is.
Because it means we have more agency than we think.
Yeah.
We can't control what happens out there,
Right.
but we can choose how we respond to it.
That's where the real work begins.
Yeah, it's about shifting from duality to non-duality.
From separation to unity.
Yeah, recognizing that interconnectedness.
It's about choosing love over fear.
Compassion over judgment.
Unity over separation.
And that's a much deeper transformation than any collective awakening could ever be.
Absolutely.
Because it's not about waiting for the world to change.
Yeah.
It's about becoming that change.
It really is.
And maybe, just maybe, by doing our own inner work, we create that ripple effect that touches other lives.
It's not about forcing change.
Yeah.
It's about radiating a different energy.
Right, a different way of being.
That's the true meaning of awakening.
Well, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too. It's a good reminder that the journey of awakening, it's an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
Full of courage and curiosity.
If you're listening and you're intrigued,
Yeah.
definitely check out the full article on the Spiritual Seek.
It's called The Illusion of Collective Spiritual Awakening.
And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
Come join the conversation on social media.
Let us know what resonated with you.
And until next time, keep seeking
Keep questioning.
and keep diving deep